All right, everybody. It looks like we're at the top of the hour. Really appreciate everyone for joining today. This is the Magetics UCaaS Magic Quadrant Leader Face-Off webinar. We've brought to you today some of the three top providers in the market for hosted voice. Really what to expect today is, I think, really more along the lines of an open conversation about the hosted voice market as a whole. Some of the things that clients are experiencing, why they're potentially moving to the cloud, or some of the things that they're taking into account. And then ultimately, what's helping them transform their businesses when they do make that move to the cloud. So you'll see here a quick agenda. Katie, you want to move to the next?
Yeah, are we on agenda?
Yep. Yeah, so a little bit about us, and first of all, thanks for everybody being here. Magetics. Magetics is an independent technology services consulting firm, and what we do is we really help alleviate the headache of procuring services by following a regimented process to uncover the needs of our clients, to bring them the best solutions. We have over 45 years of experience in this field, and we've held executive leadership positions in organizations that offer technology services. If you look at Magetics over the years, we've helped clients of all different sizes to solve their technology needs. And we really do this at no additional cost to our clientele. The way that we really look at ourselves is we're here to help you as an IT leader make the best decisions that you can. And I'd like to introduce our esteemed panelists today. Really appreciate you guys for taking the time out of your day to be a part of this and share some of your knowledge of what you have in the market about hosted voice. We've got Jim McGarry, leader of channel sales with Zoom, Ryan Ham and with 8x8, Rob Shelby, regional vice president of partner sales with Ring Central. Jim, if you could just give us a little slight background on your knowledge base as it pertains to the hosted voice and kind of where you came from that perspective.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm testing out Zoom to the highest quality because I have dogs going nuts right now in the background, which is just the work from home lifestyle that we all have. But for me personally, UCaaS has obviously been in what I have done for the last going on about 15 years now, from obviously leading channels and building channels inside of the master agent community to all the way growing and representing and building out field sales teams across the enterprise at other organizations. Came to Zoom in January of this last year to really kind of do that same thing again. Let's repeat that master agent channel, that agent channel business, or sorry, I need to get better about saying what the new terminology is, that we're all brokers, the broker business, and building out that channel to what it's grown to today, which is incredibly exciting. We're talking about 26% of the $1 billion quarter that Zoom just had is actually running through this channel, which is incredibly exciting as we continue to grow and the opportunities that are out there.
Thanks, Jim. Ryan.
Yeah. First of all, it's great to be here. My name is Ryan Ham. I'm with 8x8, and I've been with 8x8 in the enterprise sales on the enterprise sales team for around 6 years now. So I specifically focus on very large, complex enterprise sales deals, and I help channel partners like Magetics navigate the process. Obviously, the larger the client, the more complex these opportunities are, and so I just act as a liaison to make sure that I can bring my experience in the industry from both a UCaaS perspective and a contact center perspective, which we're now referring to as XCaaS, and make the process as easy for our customer base as possible. And
Ryan,
happy
we've
to be
got
here.
way too many asses in this industry. We'll leave that for another time. Rob, appreciate you joining. Could you give us a little bit of background on where you've been and particularly in this hosted voice market?
Sure. Well, I've been with Ring Central for 3 years and currently run the Southwest region for the company. And before that, I've spent 7 other years specifically in the UCaaS space with a couple of competitors, including 8x8, who joins us today. So been in the UCaaS space for, I can't believe it, 10 years. and it's changed a lot, and it's going to continue to change for the better.
Well, I really appreciate it, guys. So now let's really take a look at the hosted voice market as a whole. Just, before we lead into the panelists, I'm going to kind of give an overview, talk through a couple of different things, just that we take a look at. But really, when we're looking at this market today and what it looks like, you can just look at some of the numbers here. The hosted UCaaS, hosted voice market, interchangeable terms, but is expected to be at 24.8 billion by the year 2024. And that's up from 15.8 billion in 2019. So when you look at that growth rate year over year, it's a 9.5% growth rate year over year. And you're talking billions and billions of dollars. And I think when I looked at this statement, one of the things that really stood out to me was the last sentence there, where we look at small to medium-sized enterprises are now adopting UCaaS faster than large enterprises. And what that really looks like and means. And part of what that is this technology has evolved over the last, let's call it 10, 15 years, and has become much more reliable and usable in everyday workforce. And that's why you're seeing a lot of growth. You're seeing a lot of growth for a number of reasons, partly because of the benefits that it brings. But these are things to really think about. And you as an IT leader might be sitting there today and wondering, like, Brian, why do I care that this market's going to grow from 15.8 billion to 24.8 billion? Like, those are numbers that don't affect me. I'm in charge of my particular business unit. Well, part of the reason that it does affect you, and part of the reason why we're doing this webinar today, is with growth comes more competition and comes more entries into the market. And those are things that we at Magetics and companies, 8x8, Zoom, and RingCentral all help with. But when you look at it, when this market started, 15 years ago, there was a small number of providers. If you look at the market today, there are hundreds of providers that sit in the market today. So what we really wanted to do is start to separate some of the noise that's out there and really bring you some of the top providers in the market so you can hear from them about what's important to their clients, what their clients are seeing. And when we start to look at this, you as an IT leader, it's really not just about upgrading your PBX. It's about the customer experience. And when I think of the customer experience, I don't think of it as necessarily, an end customer, but I think of it as your experience as an IT professional, what you have to go through in terms of managing your PBX and the things that you actually bring to the table. Here's just a couple of things that came from a research that was done. But here at Magetics, we work with clients of all different sizes. We've learned, we've deployed hosted voice deals of upwards of 25,000 seats down to 5 seats, right? So we've really seen the gambit of what the market brings, of different providers, different solutions, and why people are actually making the move to the cloud. So from my perspective and what we've seen here at Magetics over the last 4.5 years, some of the things that our clients have talked to us about is, one is managing their phone systems and their legacy PBXs that are on site today. Moving your voice to the cloud materially changes your ability to manage this phone system. It makes it extremely much easier to really manage. One of my friends once told me, is like, the great part about this now, as opposed to you having to be on site and dial in your PBX and look at those things, you can manage your phone system from the beach on your phone, right? And that's a change for you as an IT professional, being able to work anywhere, anyhow that you want. Cost savings. As a leader in an organization, P&L is always important. So when you're able to come back to the business and look at what you're doing today in terms of, this is what our legacy, Cisco, Avaya, PBX is costing us today. And if we make a move to a Zoom, 8x8, or Ring, here's what our costs are going to look like going forward. And those costs are all encompassing, because when you look at from an organizational perspective, there's a lot of different variables that can come into play that really comes back. Increased visibility into call analytics and things along those lines. I know I've worked with clients at times that are, multiple different providers, multiple different phone systems spread throughout the globe. They'll be on a call, they'll have a C-level member of their organization call them and say, hey, what the heck is going on? I had this experience. Today, they don't have the vision or insight to be able to go in and really diagnose that problem, see what happens. When you start to make that move to the cloud, these types of providers are giving them that type of insight, giving them, ways to see how these calls operate and what they do. And lastly, and I think most importantly, is just increased productivity and efficiency. You'll start to see like some of the add-ons that come. It's not just about connectivity to the PSTN anymore. It's really about an overall experience through collaboration, i.e. Slack channels, video conferencing like we're here on today, and voice messaging. All these things become all encompassing, and now we're able to be delivered through one simple platform, right? So instead of you being an IT leader today that has an on-premise PBX that now you're trying to figure out, hey, everybody's working from home, how do I get soft phones deployed? How do we have to go over to this, this type of software application from a chat perspective or a video conferencing perspective? The nice thing about the providers that we brought, not only are they the top providers in the market, but they provide products that are all encompassing. So you get one solution that's going to solve multiple problems for you. So now I'd like to really kind of dive in, and we'll get Ryan, Rob, and Jim a little bit more involved in the conversation and find out more about what they see in the market and get their feelings. We're here as a third party, so we work with all the different providers. But I think what is important is to get the insights from the top providers in the market and what they see. So, Rob, we're going to start with you on this one. One of the things I think when we look at it, people really want to know is, hey, with RingCentral, what's new with RingCentral? What's on your roadmap coming down the pipe? What can people expect?
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate, first and foremost, being here and invited, and obviously being with some of my esteemed colleagues as well. We've all known each other for a number of years. So thanks for the invite. What's new? Well, RingCentral came out with RingCentral Video a year and a half ago, and it's a video service, part of our MVP platform, which is message, video, and phone. And we worked really hard over the last year and a half to, get it up to speed and make it an enterprise level video solution. And, I could list the 60 features that we launched last quarter, but we feel like we've done a really, really good job, with our video product. We just launched a embedded dialer for folks that are using Microsoft Teams and want to have Teams integration. We're really proud of that. And saying that, both Microsoft and Zoom are well-known companies with great products. But the core piece of UCaaS is that message, video, phone piece. If you add up all the UCaaS seats of Zoom and Microsoft, it still isn't RingCentral. So we really focused on our core, telephony platform, and we have a quarterly update 4 times a year, and we're constantly adding to the platform and integrating features and functionality based on customer needs.
Thanks, Rob. Ryan, same question to you as regards to 8x8. What on the roadmap for 8x8 this year? What are some of the things that you all are seeing coming down the pipe?
Yeah, definitely. So we've done some recent announcements. One of the new features that we released was front desk. We got a lot of publicity on that, won some awards. It's our new receptionist console. And so that was pretty exciting. We also, we continue to expand our global footprint. So almost on a monthly basis, we're adding more countries to our international dial plan. I know Russia was just added in October. Another thing, our video meetings that, similar to Zoom, we now offer, over 500 participants on that particular platform. And that video conferencing solution is actually included with every single license with 8x8 free of charge. So that's always nice, and that's always been the case. We are also fully certified with Microsoft Teams when it comes to the contact center. And we're also, with our Microsoft Teams strategy, we're adding new features to the Microsoft Teams platform, like the ability to do SMS, which they can't do, in a standard Teams environment, and the ability to do faxing via Teams endpoint. So those are all things that are already released. And it's also really nice, and I want to point this out, since we're talking about Gartner Magic Quadrant leaders, this is the 10th year in a row that 8x8's been put in that leaders quadrant. So that's like a decade of success. And since we've been in this UCaaS space since the get-go, like you said, 15 plus years, we're one of the kind of early vendors in that space. And we're really proud of that success as that continued leadership quadrant. We are kind of looking at some investments. We're tripling down on our contact center investments. We're releasing new GUIs. And we are going to continue to release more countries supported on our international presence. So I think that's our main focus right now.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. And Jim, finally for Zoom, what do you guys have going on these days?
Yeah, it is a wild world out there, and it's an exciting time to be at Zoom, that's for sure. One of the things that I'd kick off is we just got done last month with our worldwide user conference, which is called Zoomtopia, and we announced a ton of enhancements and that's coming to not only the video platform, but the way that we handle our UCaaS product, and continuing into what we're defining as hybrid work. And Zoom's really become the leader in a hybrid work model where, how many people are going back to the office? How many people are going to have remote work from periods of time? How many people will be in the office and remote? And there's an interesting stat out there today that 90% of conference rooms, as we all head back into an office, are only enabled for audio only. So we're going to walk into a conference room, see a Polycom phone sitting out there, and not have the video resources that we need and what users have come to expect from this day and age, and from what they've been able to see just that technology in their home. So enabling those offices, getting with organizations across the globe on what hybrid work is going to look like for them has been a huge piece. We also continue to grow the UCaaS platform. Many people forget that the UCaaS platform at Zoom is just a little bit over 2 years old. And the amount of growth inside of our industry, the fastest growing UCaaS product that's out there today, to be recognized as a leader in the Magic Quadrant with all of the features that we've added, is just an incredible effort by some incredible people at Zoom that continue to grow what that platform does, how it collaborates inside of our single platform, as well as how it works inside of other applications. And some of the things that you'll see from us that are coming in addition to the hybrid work is really our integration, not just with Teams, but with Slack, with all of the other communication sources out there. We truly want Zoom to be the one platform for communication, whether you're using it for business, whether you're using it for pleasure, whether you're using it to talk to your grandma or talk to a colleague, right? So look to us inside of this next quarter to start releasing a collaboration tool that starts embedding Teams chat and Slack chat into Zoom, regardless of which platform you're on. We're finally going to get to that utopian state that we can say it's Zoom on one platform for everything, and we'll bring all the users into that.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Well, and everybody that's on the call today, one of the reasons, to really take from this and what's new for these companies, these are three companies that are constantly reinvesting what they do every year to make their products and their solutions that much better. So just keep that to heart. So Ryan, I've got a question for you on this one. So one of the things that we look at is, why are people moving to the cloud, right? Why am I taking my on-premise PBX? And we talked a little bit about this from a high level, but I'm going to ask you, just when you're out and you're talking to clients, what is the number one reason that they give you for looking to move their voice infrastructure to the cloud?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. The last, year and a half, ever since COVID hit, it's almost been, a scramble, right? I think it's the majority of clients were just caught off guard, and they had to make that pivot to a work from home strategy. And, a lot of clients just didn't have the infrastructure, the ability to support that. I think they learned the hard way. So it didn't used to be like that. It used to be, something driven by a CIO or, this move to the cloud, and telephony just seemed to be a logical step in that right direction. They want to save money, get out of investing in data centers, things like that. But I tell you what, just everyone having to work from home and then not being able to support, people having to use an MPLS connection to get back into their office, and the cost shooting through the roof, and just that really drove the urgency, especially over the last couple of years. Because let's face it, a cloud model that just relies on internet, where the bandwidth now across the board is easily able to support telephony in even remote areas, that just led to an easy move to the cloud, and ultimately will save money for the customer.
Thanks, Ryan. Rob, this one's going to be for you. I think when we look at it, obviously it's a competitive market. And when you all go into a deal, just like, when we're working with you, we typically don't just bring our clients one option. Our goal is to go find them the best options and then help them choose between. But when you're in a competitive situation, why do you see clients are choosing RingCentral maybe over some of the other providers that are in the market? And you don't have to call out 8x8 and Zoom specifically, but just as an overall perspective.
It's a great question, and I like to talk about customer stories. Not just me talking about it. Why would a customer choose us? And since this is basically the Dallas-based, I'm gonna bring up a couple customer examples. I'm gonna start with Goosehead Insurance, which is a 1,500 user firm based here in Westlake, Texas, just outside of Southlake. And one of the reasons they chose us is execution and our ability to deploy those 1,700 users. And you can look at this on ringcentral.com under a case study, but they had a 1,700 user rollout, and they didn't have to hire a single IT resource. It went flawlessly as we replaced the PBX, and just being able to execute on that replacement is one of the reasons why people choose RingCentral over some of our esteemed colleagues on the phone, although they've got great solutions as well. But I think that is one of the main focuses and drivers for RingCentral.
Thanks, Rob. Jim, this one's for you. So during COVID, obviously in the pandemic, and we saw, Ryan hit on this, but what type of growth did you see there at Zoom during this pandemic? And is there expectation that growth is going to continue in the manner that it has, or do we see it changing in the near future?
Yeah, so great question, and we affectionately call it the Zoom boom. When we're talking about it internally, because 2020 really was the launching point for what really created the effort and everything that you're seeing today. Not only did our channel, when great partners like Magetics were able to join us, start in that 2020 timeframe, but we were really able to get our product out to the masses for people to be able to use. It's how people, I love hearing these stories from customers and from colleagues of, hey, the only way I could talk to my grandma was on Zoom, and she knew how to use the Zoom product and the platform, and it was fantastic. It connected people all throughout this pandemic. And one thing to note of that, right? We're all technology companies with what 8x8 does and RingCentral does, but when you scale in that kind of way and don't have the issues from losing service or anything like that goes through it, there's really a massive credit to engineers and to all of the teams who architect this platform to be able to grow as rock solid as it has been with everybody using it and that influx of users that came in. So we continue to make that investment in the platform. We continue to grow. We continue to scale what is coming from a feature set so that we can continue to outpace the market. But there is no signs of slowing down. 2020 was fantastic. 2021 will prove to be even better. In our last earnings call, we just announced our first $1 billion quarter. We just announced our 2 millionth UCaaS seat, which is the fastest to ever grow to 2 million seats in just under a 2-year period of time. So the sky's the limit right now. We also talk about building the rocket ship while we're flying it and making sure that we're taking into account all of these customer relationships as they're expanding their platform, as they're rolling back into office. What does that look like? So our expectations and our projections is to continue to see Zoom grow, not just in the video side, but what we're doing from a collaboration perspective as well in UCaaS.
Well, and Jim, I think I'd like to add on this just from the overall perspective. If we look at all the providers that are on the call here today and what the pandemic has done from a work from home perspective, and Ryan hit it earlier, and Rob would probably echo this sentiment, is part of the drive to this hosted voice platform is the absolute speed at which these seats can be deployed in a, let's call it, emergency situation. Like obviously there's other components that go in when you're porting numbers and doing those things that take time. But when you've got to get a seat up and you've got to get it done and you've got to make changes on the fly, there is no substitute for moving your voice infrastructure to the cloud, in my humble opinion.
Totally agree. And it's actually funny that you said that. We've all seen just incredible people do incredible things, but we had I won't use the customer's name, but it was a big bank that had 25,000 UCaaS users that needed to be rolled out in 60 days. And just the fact that you can roll out that many people in 60 days, train them, get them up and running is just incredible effort. And it shows with all of us on our history of UCaaS, how far we have come to be able to execute on those things so quickly, and really the pace at which that's now able to happen.
And Ryan, I've got a question for you here. If you could, as you're dealing with clients, can you give me an example of a situation where you really help the client transform their business and how they operate?
Yeah, definitely. So I put some thought in this, and I was thinking about, I always like the clients that really push the edge of technology, right? And really just, test the boundaries and use it to its fullest. And so I was thinking about a client. It's also a major insurance company that, we hit the main points. They purchased 8x8 for both UCaaS and CCaaS. So the big benefit they were experiencing at the time, they had Cisco in place, and they were just tired of dealing with different vendors for different features and functionality. I mean, typically even between UCaaS and the contact center, you're sometimes dealing with 5+ different vendors at a time. And if something breaks, you're always pointing the finger at other areas because they're supposed to be integrated together. So number one, this company moved forward with 4,000 plus UCaaS agents and another 200 contact center agents with 8x8 on a single platform, because that's probably our biggest differentiator. Is that 8x8, we're really the only vendor on this call that has both a contact center solution as well as a UCaaS solution that are Gartner ranked and built on the same platform. So that just eliminates the finger pointing. It gives you better visibility, better analytics across the entire platform. And what I thought was really cool about this client is they also took advantage of our CPaaS solution, which a lot of people aren't familiar. That's why we refer to communication as a service as XCaaS. But this is a video platform. If you think about it in the insurance industry, specifically car insurance, where now the contact center agents, if someone has a car accident, they from the contact center, when someone calls in to report their claim, they can send an SMS message to that particular user on their cell phone, click on that message, ask to take over the camera and the video recording on that phone. So the actual person on the other end of the phone can show the car damage and walk around, and the contact center agent can then start taking screenshots, annotate that particular screenshot, and all keep that within the contact center. And that just really revolutionized and increased efficiency within that particular insurance agency, because now that person doesn't have to go into the shop. They don't have to, have somebody spend the time to look at the damage, and it's just instantaneous access. So it just increased efficiency and ultimately saved them a lot of money every single month from an insurance perspective. And I just think about all the different ways that you could utilize that, field service workers, the ability to take advantage of that thing people have and carry around with them all the time, but integrate that into communications happening from your customer base into the contact center, and then have analytics across the entire environment, whether you're in the contact center or whether you're, a standard UCaaS agent. So,
and Ryan,
yeah.
I'm glad you picked up the phone and brought that up, because it takes me back to a story of we were actually working with a real estate company, and I would assume that this happens quite a bit if you have an on legacy PBX. As we're going through conversations with our client, it came out that their workforce obviously is a mobile workforce. They're out in the field, they're doing things. And so what they started to find was their employees weren't actually using their phones, and they weren't using their corporate phone numbers. They're just using their cell phone numbers, right? And so from a business owner perspective, what you're doing is you're starting to lose the grip and the hold that you have over the end client when your employees are just giving them cell phone numbers that they then own. Where with these types of platforms is, it's voice, collaboration, video, all these things, any place, anywhere, anytime, so that you're not worried about what number they're giving. They call the corporate number, they pick up the cell phone. It's all right here all the time. So that was just, a little tidbit that I wanted to add in there. Let's see. Rob, I've got a question for you, and as it pertains to Ring Central, and I gave this one specifically for Ring Central just because, from an integration perspective, they have been, I would say, one of the leaders, which is the number of integrations that they've done just in time to market. But Rob, can you tell us about some of the benefits that clients are able to recognize from like CRM integrations and maybe some of the other integrations that you have on that side, and really take advantage of from a business perspective that they might not be taking advantage of today when they're managing their own phone system on site?
Sure. I like to, be basic here. So let's just start with like Salesforce integration. So if you got a Cisco call manager sitting on your desk, you got a sales team making phone calls, they're going to look it up in Salesforce and they're going to manually dial either on their Cisco phone, or like we just talked about, on their own personal cell phone, which is even worse. Hopefully get a hold of that potential prospect, talk to them, and then, put notes into Salesforce. That's it. That's the old way to do things. If you've got an integration, it's very simple. With us, it's click, it automatically dials. It dials with the corporate phone number. You can type notes right as the call's going. And there's no loss in translation. So, that particular salesperson, your salesperson you're paying for, is not using their personal cell phone number. They're not you've made it easy. So that's the importance of sales, integrations in Salesforce. We've got tons, hundreds literally, because we're an open source platform. But I like to go back to that Salesforce spot. Now, everybody likes to go to just sales and use the Salesforce piece, but we've got integrations into a number of other software. And so we can speed up someone in finance and someone in customer service, whether it's Index and elsewhere. Everybody likes to just go to get salespeople more productive, but we've got integrations into hundreds of things that make the entire enterprise more productive from that point click aspect.
Great. No, I appreciate it, Rob, and it's very informative. Jim, question for you now. When we look at it and we look at the difference between a hosted voice platform with a provider like Zoom, or really any of the providers here, and then a client that may be operating their PBX on site, can you tell us a little bit about the difference in redundancies that a client is able to experience by moving their voice infrastructure to the cloud with a provider like Zoom?
Yeah, absolutely. And I cut my teeth on selling, voice over IP PBXs to the market in Denver and all across the southern part of the country here. And it's interesting, when we used to talk about redundancy, when we were talking about the on-site PBX, it's all about, can you get to an N+1 strategy, which is, all of the call control boxes and all of that plus one device, that if something fails in the unlikely event of that, then it goes somewhere else. And those systems were fantastic, right? They were ahead of their time at the time. But now when you look at the distribution of bandwidth, when you look at the access to data centers, when you partner with some of these data center providers that are out there in the globe today, and what's happening inside of AWS and other providers that are out there that have made these significant investments, the processing power and the availability of those data center is far beyond anything we ever could have imagined in the on-premise world. Because every application, everything is running through those data centers. That's our lifeblood of what we do. They're becoming national security targets, right? Because that's the way that we run our systems. When you have a platform that uses and leverages, no matter where you're at in the globe, the closest data center to where you're at physically located, the ability for us to now have a redundant platform that is available, that when you hit that button to place a call or place a video call, that expectation is that it's just going to work. And now that we can take the gear off site, that we can put it into a shared resources pool with everybody else in the globe, to be able to leverage that bandwidth and leverage all of the hardware and the infrastructure that's there. That's what's really changed the game from a reliability and an availability perspective. And that redundancy becomes a thing of the past. It's no longer a feature, it's an expectation.
Great. No, I appreciate it, Jim. Well, and I think that's one of the things that we've even experienced here at Magetics as we go through and we work with clients and we're helping them through this digital transformation, is you start to look at it and they say, hey, here's where we are today. Why would I look at potentially doing this? And we start to talk to them about the benefits of multiple data centers, multiple switching gear, like all these things that you as providers invest in and bring to the market. And for them to do it themselves, as you're looking at, hey, not only do I need to buy one phone system, but for me to really run in an N+1 scenario, I've got to buy another phone system. Oh, and then on top of that, I'm going to have to go back to Avaya and buy the licensing for that phone system as well. So the expense, if you really are going to build a redundant voice infrastructure and you're going to do it yourself, the expenses can be immense, right? So one of the things I wanted to look at, Ryan, if you could, we're going to switch a little bit and let's go into the teams realm, because everybody loves Microsoft Teams these days. But if you could you tell us a little bit about the impact that Microsoft Teams has had on the market as a whole? Because I think it's something like we as third-party consultants, we have this conversation quite a bit. And it's one of those things like, hey guys, let's take a look at this and then let's start to peel that onion back. But can you tell us about what you're seeing from a client perspective? And then can you tell us on the implementation side, what you see when clients are utilizing Microsoft Teams from an actual either PSTN Connect perspective or just overall trying to integrate voice and Teams together?
Absolutely. Yeah. Teams is interesting. We took at 8x8, we took a look at Microsoft Teams, and obviously it's the elephant in the room, right? I mean, Teams is by far the largest, UC deployed agent globally. And you can't go to an organization that's already implemented Teams and say, okay, I want you to rip all that stuff out and let's just, let's put something else in there from a UCaaS agent, because people are using it, right? So we took the roadmap of saying, okay, well, what can we do to complement Teams and maybe fill in some of those gaps? And we analyzed it at 8x8, and we considered the bot approach and we considered a number of different approaches. And ultimately, what we learned from our client base is that they really wanted a seamless integration model with Microsoft Teams. So number one, out of the gate, I think we were one of the earliest adopters of saying, okay, we're going to be a direct routing partner with Microsoft Teams, to where the users themselves, if they want to activate the PBX on the back end and utilize 8x8 and utilize all of our enterprise grade PBX functionality admin features, they can do so, and the user themselves will not know any different. So with direct routing and Microsoft Teams integration with 8x8, the user can place a phone call, port numbers, have a DID, goes out, straight from their Teams agent, and they have no idea that 8x8's on the back end. So it's seamless to them. And that's, when IT managers and telecom managers are pushing something out, that's their agenda. They want to make sure it's seamless to the client. With that said, there are also some additional functionality features that we've decided to add on, like the ability to send and receive SMS messages through Microsoft Teams, which, Microsoft can't do with their normal client, and the ability to add in fax capabilities straight through that Teams client. So that's received really rave reviews from our client base. And then we also took the extra step and said, okay, well, let's make sure our contact center is also Microsoft Teams certified. So that agent, they can also use that, from a calling perspective within our contact center. So huge trends of moving. I think a lot of clients are seeing the advantage of partnering with, a company like 8x8, where we've got, 48 countries that we support with unlimited calling plans, and using that with their Teams integration, as well as the ability to do a hybrid deployment model. Because as we know, there's going to be lots of cases where, you don't need a Teams client, or users aren't using a Teams client. So we also offer the ability to say, okay, well, this subset of users is going to utilize Teams with 8x8 and the direct routing capability. Well, maybe some conference rooms, maybe some overhead pagers, maybe a whole segment of your business is not on Microsoft Teams. Well, that can be deployed in a hybrid model where we're using the 8x8 client. And, it works well together, because from an admin perspective, they're managing it all from one single point of glass. And, that just, makes things easier from a global perspective, and, analytics perspective as well. And it's been quite successful. I mean, I'm seeing a huge uptick in those. We've already been extremely successful with many large clients deploying Microsoft Teams. And it's only going to continue to grow, I think.
No, I would agree with you on that, Ryan. I think it is going to continue to grow. And I think that's why when you look at, 8x8, Ring Central, and Zoom, you've all started to invest in those types of Teams integrations, and do it all to different varying degrees. I think the other thing, though, is when you start to sit down and, it also comes down as like talking with your clients about what they're doing with Teams and how they're utilizing Teams, and starting to really peel that onion back. Because I think it turns into a lot, like for me, it's like the same thing as like when clients come and say, hey, Brian, we want to go to AWS. My first question is why? And then does it make sense? And then how do we get to that point where, like, if it makes sense, let's absolutely do it, right? But if it doesn't make sense, let's keep our minds open to find the path and the journey that's going to be best for your organization, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's Teams, we got to go do it. It is what it is. Because to your point, is hybrid deployments, actual deployments. There are a lot of different ways to go skin the cat. And that's why, we have engineering resources. Each one of the providers here bring top level engineering resources to every deployment that they work on, that help you as a client determine what is that best path to walk. So really appreciate the insight on that, Ryan. One of the other things, so Rob, I'd like to talk to you a little bit from a Ring Central perspective as it relates to your reporting functionality and some of the things that you're able to do. It's one of the things when I look at the platform, I do enjoy. But can you talk to us a little bit how reporting on a hosted voice platform is different than somebody that's working with an on-premise PBX? And then some of the things that they might be able to experience today that they're not experiencing. Like if they were to move to the cloud, what are some of the real benefits of reporting that they're going to see? And that might sound like a little plain Jane for all of us as we talk about, evolutions of communications, but as an IT professional that's managing a system, reporting is, it's one of those things that you got to be aware of.
Yeah, great question, Brian. And this is something that, when you've got a premise-based PBX, largely there isn't any reporting. So sometimes prospects say, well, I'm not using reporting. What does that even mean? What analytics? What are you talking about? And so I'll give you a couple examples. So if you're an IT director and the CEO calls and says, I'm having terrible phone quality, this system's broken, this and that. With Ring Central, we've got an analytics tool that breaks down every call, gives a MOS score, and can rank the call and tell you exactly what's happening within the call. So that CEO might be talking to someone on a cell phone, over 4G in a bad coverage area, and it's not the actual phone system being broken, it's an actual bad connection. And this enables and empowers that you as an IT professional to not only respond, but respond with actual analytics and data. And so that's one piece of the analytics puzzle that's really, really neat. The other piece, I'll bring up Brinker International, who owns Chili's, if you don't know. We've got they're one of a wonderful RingCentral customer. And this is a basic concept, but kind of highlights the difference between premise-based and cloud-based. So they have 780 plus locations on RingCentral, and they still get 50% of their to-go orders over the phone. And we run reports, they run reports themselves, and it gets reported on, you can do it daily, hourly, heck, by minutes if you want, on missed phone calls. And a missed phone call to Chili's is a missed to-go order. Someone calling Chili's is asking, they're placing a to-go order that's 95% of the time, asking, if they're open or directions, so they've put their arms around that, and now calling customers back, apologizing for a missed phone call. You can actually have actionable items from these analytics, and that's the thing that it helps you as an IT professional. But no matter what you're doing from an enterprise perspective, you have actual data that you can be proactive, as opposed to not even knowing and reactive to problems.
No, Rob, that's some great insight, and I think very, very useful information from an IT professional perspective. Guys, so I think we're gonna kind of wrap up the question component of this, but for everybody that's on the webinar today, one of the things I'd really like to challenge you with, or really think about, is one of the best ways to understand how these platforms are different than what you may be doing today is to actually go through the process and go through a demo. Go through a demo with either each one of these providers or one of the providers you feel best with, because when you sit down and you look at some of the capabilities that they're going to bring to the table and the platform and how it works, it will dramatically change your thought process on what you're doing. I've seen this happen with clients that we've worked with in the past, as they go through and they're kind of like, Brian, why are you dragging me along this challenge? I just want to find somebody, I just want to pay somebody to come in and manage my phone system for me. And I'm like, yeah, we can help you find somebody that can do that. But if you want to save that money and do something that's going to change how you operate as a business, go through a demo, take the 45 minutes to an hour, see what these platforms actually look like, touch, feel, and look like. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think at this point, we'll open it up for questions just for a few minutes, that anybody that wants to ask a question, you can use the QA chat button down at the bottom of the screen. And it doesn't look like we have any questions so far. But we'll give a couple of minutes for anybody that wants to ask a question. Rob, Ryan, Jim, I really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your day to spend some time with us, and everybody that's on the phone here listening in. I hope everyone found it a valuable use of time. I know we discussed things at somewhat of a high level, right? It's hard to touch and feel some of these things, and that's why I kind of end with, like, just go do a demo. When you do the demo, you'll see exactly what these guys are talking about and some of the differences and what they're going to bring to the table, and how to kind of get the juices flowing, and like, hey, here's some of the things that I'm going to be able to do now, as opposed to maybe what you are doing today. So everybody, I really appreciate the time. Doesn't look like we have any questions, so hopefully we answered all the questions during the day. Guys, appreciate the time. Thanks for spending your lunch hour with us. Have a great day, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.